everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you'll know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. How you doing, man? This is your host, Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Let me give you a hearty welcome on a Saturday, wherever you are. It might be Sunday morning. I don't know. Part of this whole thing is just being able to show appreciation to people. And as always, for people that are coming on the show for the first time, we thank you, and we hope that we're able to give you a quality show. When I say we, it's to underscore the fact that I'm not by myself. I have consultant producer. I have people that come up with the artwork. I have people who come on the show regularly to make sure that we have dialogue and interaction. So I want to thank those people as well. But if you're coming on the show for the first time, there's some rules. Number one, I want you to understand that this is your safe space. So the Shout Out Show is not necessarily a Preacher Mars thing. It's more so Preacher Mars have a safe space. Take 30 minutes to be in a safe space, and let's just talk and dialogue. Number two, for the people that come on the show, you know I appreciate you, I love you, and I can only expand on that by talking about the topic I'm about to talk about here in a moment. I mean to bring this up because this is a conversation that I've been having with close friends and associates, but it is a community conversation. When I say a community conversation, means that I am not totally engaged in myself. I'm not thinking totally about myself. I think that I owe a debt to this community, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about it because a lot of things are happening in society. A lot of things are happening around the world. Our families, how we run our families, our households change. The dynamics for how we do businesses change. The dynamics for how we go to the mosque has changed. 300-seat mosque now seat maybe 25 people comfortable with social distancing. So there's been a lot of changes that have occurred. One of them that's been on my mind, and it goes all the way back to February. I was dealing with my mom. I had actually taken time off the road to spend time with my mom because she just wasn't doing well health-wise. And I really sat there and I started looking at everything. And I remember I canceled a show in Detroit. And people, why are you doing that? And I said, because in this space, I'm leaning on prophetic tradition about going in places, infecting places. If you're infected, don't go there. And if you know they're infected, don't go there either. So this invective, if you will, is a little bit different of what we're going to talk about today. The topic today is why I'm not retiring from stand-up comedy. Why I'm not retiring from stand-up comedy. Now, let me frame this for you appropriately. I have been doing stand-up roughly since I was 17 years old. I'm 53 now, so you do the math. 17 years old, doing stand-up. My mother once snuck up to a college, my college, to see what her baby was on, and she snuck up. I didn't even know she was coming. And she conspired with another comedian named Carl Strong, and there I was, doing my bit, cussing. As you know, I wasn't Muslim then, but I was cussing. I look out, there's my mom. I'm like, whoa. So I go from being this outrageous comedian at the time to, oh man, my mom's in the audience. It changed up the whole flow. But that's not the point, though. My mother came to me and she said, well, I have you in college to this, but she said, get your degree. You have something to fall back on. But at the end of your 4 years, if you love this, go do it. And it has been that. But the catalyst, brothers and sisters, happened a couple of days ago when I went to go get my dry cleaning. Now, let me lay this out. I haven't taken my stuff to the dry cleaners in almost 4 months, easily pushing up on 5 months. I haven't taken my stuff to the dry cleaner in basically 5 months. I decided to break out of a rut. You know how we get in ruts, I decided to take my stuff to the dry cleaners. I went to the dry cleaners, and brothers and sisters, let me say something to you. I walked in that place, and I'm not being funny. It was silent. Like there was nobody at the front desk, and you know how you have people waiting for this stuff, and the machines. It was so quiet. I realized that the machines weren't running, and the owner came out of back, took my clothes, and I was like, "Well, I'm dropping them off early. Can I pick them up this evening?" He's no, you can pick them up tomorrow. And I was like, "Why? Why can I pick them up?" He goes, "COVID. We don't do that anymore." The man said, "We don't run our machines except Monday, Wednesday, Friday," which means that out of a 7-day work cycle, brothers and sisters, they close 4. They're not putting out machinery. They're not cleaning clothes on 4 days. And I said to myself at this point, I said, Alhamdulillah, I said, that is amazing. But it brought me to this point. It brought me to this reality. The idea of doing stand-up has been dreadfully compromised. My options to do stand-up are sit in front of a computer and hope people come. That doesn't do anything for my stand-up. As a creative, it may get you paid, but as a creative, you need the interaction of people. Number 2 is I can kind of hop on the road and start doing mainstream stuff. But number 1, and that has 2 aspects to it. Number 1 is the health aspect. Number 2 is I really want to go back around alcohol. Number 3 is I can put out content, which I do have content, alhamdulillah. But, you know, it's getting people out to these things. And I said the reason I'm not retiring from stand-up, it really has nothing to do with some of the stuff I told you. Those are underlying factors. It has to do with the fact that I started a tour years ago. And it wasn't a tour, it was a journey. It was called Allah Made Me Funny. And it had the blessings and the sanctions of my teacher, Ep.114 Muhammad. And I realized that when we talked about doing Allah Made Me Funny, it was so much not about making jokes. It was about making a difference. It was about preservation of our community. The time was a year and a half after 9/11, and I waited to come up with a tour because several years after 9/11, Islamophobia had been off the rails, and it became a question as to what kind of legacy the Muslims would leave for our children. This is 2002. And I came up with the idea, Allah Made Me Funny, not knowing that establishing this comedy tour at this time would frame where we are right now. It framed the conversation I'm about to have with you right now. Ep.114 Muhammad told me not to start Allah Made Me Funny in the African-American Muslim community. He said it'll die in committee. He said your needs, your skill set are needed with our immigrant brothers and sisters. And he asked, are you familiar with your immigrant brothers and brothers and sisters? I said, no, I'm not. I said, not in the least. And it was clear. It wasn't a situation of bad feelings, but it wasn't the home warm feeling that I got when I came back to Masjid Muhammad on New Jersey Avenue. And he said, you need to remember that. I said, why? He said, because when you do this tour, he said, you're not going to start it here. He said, you started with your immigrant brothers and sisters. He said, and you rectify that feeling in your heart. He said, you need to have the feeling that when you go around them, they love you and you love them. He said, and if that's the case, then we can come around and we'll love them and they'll love us. He said, take the language with you. Brothers and sisters, you may not believe this, you may not understand this, but the challenge then was to get a balance between African-American Muslims and immigrant Muslims. Get us in a room and understand that we're all in the same boat, brothers and sisters, the same boat. And sadly, and realistically, the only way we could do that was through comedy, was through this little project called Allah Made Me Funny that was introduced, not conceived, but introduced in the immigrant Muslim community. And it gave them space to understand image. Now, my teacher said, the fact of the matter is, with the 9/11, even up to now, he said, we have to teach our brothers and sisters that Islam in America is about fighting for what you believe in. Even if you can't see the finish line, fighting for what you believe in. And in that aspect, it is a teaching philosophy, brothers and sisters, that you have to fight for the wellness of your students, even though you may not see them be successful in the year you teach them or the 2 years you teach them, but you have to put spirit, commitment, and compassion in your efforts because that's the end goal. That's what you want to see. And just so you folks know, I do have other options than telling jokes on stage. My mama said it's a poor rat only got one hole to run into. Well, I got several holes. I'm an entrepreneur. I create content. I'm a former teacher, educator. I'm a creative. I do all these things. I'm a writer. I'm a consultant. That's not the point. If somebody said Preach walked away from stand-up, he retired, I don't think anybody in the community would, they begrudge me. They wouldn't say he ran away, he chickened out. They said, brother's put in a long time. I have put in a lot of time. My fingerprints are community fingerprints. Let me say that again. My fingerprints are community fingerprints. So all of the Muslim comedians you see have community DNA on them, one way or another. No matter how big you are, how small you are. We're talking about Hassan Minhaj, Azizman, Mo Ammer, Rami, Omar Regan, Musa Khan, all of them, even Jeremy McClellan, has DNA of the Muslim community fingerprints on them. And I'm saying this because the reason I'm not retiring is the job isn't done. If I leave now, brothers and sisters, the job will be incomplete. I would have violated some of the most important tenets of my existence and my orientation as a Muslim. If I retired, brothers and sisters, metaphorically, it could be said without argument that in the most crucial of times, I left my post. You've heard me talk about General Order number 5. Do not leave your post until properly relieved. This is the worst of times and the most interesting of times. I'll say it right here and now. You can mark it down. The rift between entertainers, and I'm talking comedy, just comedy. The rift between African-American Muslim comedians and immigrant Muslim comedians is vast. Vast. There's no communication. There's no fellowship. In some regards, there's some fellowship, but there's no real communication, no real fellowship. And we're in a situation whereby in the most crucial of times, nobody had a voice talking about George Floyd. Nobody had a voice talking about Breonna Taylor. Nobody had a voice talking about Ahmaud Arbery. Nobody had a voice. Now you can say, hey, I got on my little shout out show. Yes, but the power is in numbers. And I will say this, and I'll take whatever criticism, but some of our Muslim comedians, I love you. Allah knows I love you. For the sake of Allah, I love you and your families, but you're folded. In the most crucial of times, you folded. And therefore, we're in a crisis situation. I should be retired by now, not because I quit, because I did my job. But I look and I see that the work's not done because people aren't doing their jobs. And so I can't take the gold watch, brothers and sisters. I can't sit out by a creek and fish with a bottle of lemonade by my side. I'm still a worker, a righteous worker as much as I can be, but I'm still a worker. And in that space, it behooves me that I'm reflecting my community because my community lets me know in no uncertain words that we have work to do. Now, let me stop and give a shout out. Sister Reed, I'm glad you called me. I'm glad you came on the show. I was about to call you, come around there. I hadn't seen you in a little bit. We miss you and we love you. I hope everything is all right. But for all the comedians that have come out of our community, it's based on community. I am a community comedian, meaning as hard as you see me go on stage, that's as hard as you see me go working in a prison on stage or doing food distribution. There's no lines of delineation. Service is service. Whether I'm telling jokes, whether I'm doing food distribution, whether I'm educating, service is service. And I have to say this because that's the way I grew up. I grew up with heroes who emphasized The importance of upholding the community as much as upholding yourself. Somebody told me this, and I thought, let me give up my man Earth. Good to see you, brother. Hope you're feeling well. Yes, I am a community comedian, brother. Yes. One of my teachers, Mr. Dick Gregory, and I had a conversation. At this point, he was about 80 years old, or close to 80 years old. And he was still doing stand-up at a place called the Riot Act Comedy Theater in Northwest Washington. And I was, he had come to see my show, the All That Made Me Funny show. It was a two-man show at that time. He had come to see the show, and we had a conversation where I agreed to be the host for his 80th birthday party, which he was going to be holding. You know, I asked him because I wanted to know, you're having your 80th birthday party. I said, but sir, that's what I called him. Sir, Mr. Gregory, I said, but you're turning 80. You're going to turn 80 in a comedy club. So my little time I talked to you about being on stage means nothing. He had been on stage from the time he got out of the Army to that time. We're talking at least 60 years, brothers and sisters, 60 years. And I asked him, what's the drive? What's the drive? I said, because it's not just you being on stage. I saw you lead protest marches, voter rights marches. You've been with King. You've been with X. You've been with Muhammad Ali. You told black people about the diets back in the day with the Bahamian diet. I said, what keeps you going? And he said, when I go to sleep at night, I wake up because I know that I'm not done. He said, I go out of the street, I look around and said, I go out of the street and look around. He said, I see where the message hasn't resonated. He says, I still have teaching to do. And then he asked me, how long do you plan to do this? And I said, man, I ain't going to be 80 years old telling jokes. And he looked at me and he said, why not? I said, it's just not practical. He said, no. He said, you won't do it because you're afraid that you'll get 80 years old and you'll be like me and you realize that there's still work to do. Essentially, the man was telling me that I'll never get off my post. So far be it for me to roll up, pull up tent, pull up stakes and pull up the tent because of COVID. But I have to say this, Muslim community, I love you, but you've got to do a darn sure better job of loving these comedians. Because one of the reasons I'm not retiring, because we don't really have any Muslim comedians that can go out there and get it like we used to get it back in 2004, 2005. And we have to do a better job of valuing this type of entertainment. The Omar Regans, the Muslim comedians, even Muhammad, Hassan Hadi, they have their shows. But in the terms of reaching back, it's not about the show. It's about the service. So I'm not going to retire. I have to stay on post. And what I'm going to say is staying on post is so much more than just telling jokes. I am a former teacher. I look in the eyes of children. I look in the eyes of non-Muslim children and Muslim children. And when you look in the eyes of Muslim children, as much as we love our Muslim youth, they are unsure. And when you turn unsure youth out to the world, they become sheep ready for slaughter. Let me give a shout out, Sister Rabina. Yeah, I'm gonna hang in there as long as Allah lets me, inshallah. Like I said, I love coming to London. London was a breath of fresh air. I actually thought about living in London for a moment, but those taxes are too high. Okay. But the idea of retiring, brothers and sisters, is a sad one. Many of you know I didn't want to be a comedian when I grew up. And there's a reason why I didn't want to be a comedian. Check this out. Because comedians go out of style. Your style of comedy can go out of style. The bookers don't like you anymore. You can get a little long in the tooth. You can be gray. You got the young kids coming around. It's all a game. But believe me, halal entertainment is just like regular entertainment. It's just who's pimping who at this point in time. So, yeah, there's a worry that all of a sudden halal comedy could go out. Sister said we need halal humor, but Do you really? Kids don't have to come to see a show anymore. They can turn on Netflix and they watch the person with the Muslim name curse a blue streak, and we'll go, oh, okay. And it's not okay. We'll accept that. We'll settle for that. But we uphold the people who really, really have the community trust in their best interest. Meaning that the words that come out of my mouth, brothers and sisters, and it's very hard to write halal or Muslim humor, because you can be clean, but it doesn't necessarily mean being halal. I've sat with scholars about bits I've written, and who does that? The world says just say whatever you want to, but Islam says say it through this filter, and trust that when it comes out on the other side, not only would it be funny, but it'll be funnier. It'll be more accessible. People will appreciate the effort that you gave into it. But when I look at children these days, and be very, very careful about what I'm about to say, it does not reflect a tone of where parents are guiding their children. Parents are guiding their children the best they can. But the world is bigger than your parental guidance. When you turn off the TV, that young man turns on a phone, or he turns on a Android, and he can watch things without your permission. Now, I'm not saying children don't need to explore the world. Yes. But I'm here to tell you, I grew up at a different time. And there was a reason why, when you went to the movies, it said G, PG, R, not even PG-13 and MA. Because they understood that the world can only be relayed to these children, understanding where they were in the world and their ability to understand this. So yes, I'll make it clear. I'm not retiring from stand-up. What I will do is I'm going to get a little bit more creative, a little bit more aggressive, and I'm going to be a little bit more service-oriented. So brothers and sisters, when you see things that I post, if you will, support that. Because I support you. Outside of being a comedian, I support the idea that the Muslim community, the Muslim Ummah, is one of the most important Ummahs in the world. And I try to represent that as much as I can. Hollywood doesn't like that. I told you guys stories about Hollywood. They don't like that. Hollywood doesn't like the lions that Islam has produced over the years. They're like sheep. You guys know me, I'm not a sheep. And over the world, over time, what's up, Brother Mikkel? I want to give you some shout out, man. Thank you for coming back through the show. Over time, this idea of halal humor, and I'll say it, I'm a funny dude. It's made me funnier. It's made me more proficient. It's made me more skillful. It's made me to the point when I'm talking about retiring, I still, with a sense of pride and newness and novelty, can say above everything else why I'm not retiring from stand-up, the reason is Allah made me funny. So I'm going to ask the Muslim community to embrace ideas coming out from these young comedians, not just me, but the young comedians, not just me, the female comedians, because it's not me alone that I'm speaking for. There are a lot of comedians, particularly Muslim comedians, that are sitting at home that have invested in the Muslim idea, the Muslim model for entertaining this halal humor idea. And right now, the game's not giving back to them. And they're having the same conversations that I'm having with you about when are things going to open up again? You know, are we doing a show on the internet? Nobody's producing anything. Brothers and sisters, I'll say this and I'll keep it short and I'll keep it extremely compact. We need your support. We need you with these organizations to say, hey, listen, have a comedy show. Support the Muslim comedians. Support the Muslim comedians because they need work. Beyond, oh, we need a fundraiser. Let's get this one. Let's get this one. Let's get. Because we're a weird and fickle community sometimes when it comes to entertainment. And I called you all out, and I don't care who hears it because it's the truth. For years, I have advocated for Muslim comedians. I've I've campaigned for them to be on some of these events. And alhamdulillah, it's nice that I can get on an event, but the young ones need a chance. There's no, if you will, open mics for Muslim comedians. You got to go to the regular open mics and you got to contend with that. But a lot of them count. They count on the ability that there's going to be a Muslim comedy market there, just like the other Muslim rappers and spoken word artists, and traditionally we have failed them. We failed them because we haven't developed a market for them. And the sad part about it, when the market did get big, Hollywood comes in and goes, I'll take this one, but leave the rest. And instead of Muslims going, no, we're going to support all of them, you go with the one that they took. In the Muslim community, I'll call it out. Before COVID hit, one of the top comedians in the Muslim comedy market was not even Muslim. I love him. He's a good dude. His name is Jeremy McClellan. Now, the problem is not on Jeremy because the Muslim wanted to book him. But doggone it, you're going to book the guy that's not Muslim. And I love him because he'll tell you, I'm not Muslim. I have no intention of becoming a Muslim. And that's honest. He's a comedian. He's going to accept work. That's what he's supposed to do. But when I have to advertise for young Muslim comedians, or I got to campaign for them and I got to jump through hoops on behalf of them, that's the problem. And I'm not going to retire from stand-up comedy. But I'm going to tell you something. I love the Muslim community, but worst comes to worst, a year from now, I can't go back to where I came from. Be very clear, extremely clear. I came from the mainstream to serve this community. And there are comedians who didn't go to the mainstream to stay here and serve this community. And you got to respect that. You got to respect that. So buy their t-shirts, buy their hats, buy the little DVDs, go on their website, give them a kind word. Whatever it is we have to do to make sure that they're engaged and they know that their Muslim community that they chose over everything else loves them, that's what you got to say. Let me give a shout out to my mom. My mom is actually she's the matriarch of Allah Made Me Funny. What's going on, Mama Son? And her sidekick, Miss Eleanor. All right. I got my ladies in. Now, brothers and sisters, take this to heart. If you don't support Muslim comedians, Muslim comedy, Muslim rappers, Muslim spoken word artists, Muslim writers, you don't have to worry about a person like Preacher Moss retiring from stand-up comedy. You know why? Because I'll just be gone. It's that simple. Have a blessed day. I want to say have a blessed rest of your day, if you will, your Saturday. I appreciate you listening, but show these other people some love. Show these other comedians some love, these rappers, these singers, because you know what? They have a thirst for putting the smiles on the faces of Muslim community. The songs that you hear, they make for you. Okay? So I'm just going to say that. I'm going to roll out. I appreciate you. Have an extremely blessed day. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shout Out Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next Shout Out Show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from ShOUT. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out ShOUT.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.